When it comes to food, I would say I'm not a picky eater, but I do like a healthy, balanced diet. I love my greens and especially love nice grilled chicken. But one of my guilty pleasures is chips, specifically Lay's kettle cooked. There's just something about the flaky blisters, savory flavor, and crunchy texture that makes me crave it. So because I've been a loyal Lay's kettle cooked devourer for many years, I've decided to make a mock ad for it. But because I'm a sucker for cool visual effects, I had to incorporate UE5 in some way. So here's the goal: make a Halloween themed Lay's ad incorporating live action footage and Unreal Engine 5. And we're gonna be doing it in 3 steps: conceptualizing the story and shooting the ad, create UE5 assets, and compositing the UE5 assets with live action footage. Step 1. Conceptualizing the story and shooting the ad. I knew I wanted it to be simple and short, between 30 and 60 seconds. So back to the basics: establish the location, the character, the conflict, the solution. Like many of my ideas, this one came to me during a long sleepless night. You know, one of those nights when you're trying to fall asleep but your brain is bouncing from thought to thought. Like, I hope tomorrow's warm. You know, waffles are so much better than pancake. Wait, did I lock the door? Why do you cook bacon but bake cookies? So while laying there, I asked myself, what's your favorite thing about these Lay's chips? And immediately my brain replied with, crunchy! And suddenly all the stars aligned. All my neurons were firing in sync. It was like I was in flow state with all the answers just pouring into my brain. According to the time of year and the recent effects of climate change, tomorrow will be cooler, approximately around 68 degrees. You are correct, waffles are totally better than pancakes. And yes, the doors are locked. I still have no clue why you cook bacon but bake cookies. What if you use the crunchiness of the chips to drown out any noise that you didn't want to hear? Perfect. Theme: Halloween is coming up. Who, what, why? A student's trying to study, but his personified inner demons are telling him to do other things. He uses the chip's crunchiness to drown out the sound of the voice. Nailed it. Production day. Halloween themed, this had to have rain, thunder, and lightning. Rain and thunder can be achieved through sound effects, but lightning had to be practical. So here's the lighting setup. I used a tube light in the bathroom and the Aperture Amaranth 200D outside the window to simulate lightning for the opening wide shot. And then use the Godox SL60W to replicate moonlight or street light by shining it through the window at a downward angle. I also used another Godox SL60W with a light dome inside the room pointing at the opposite corner to bring up the exposure as an ambient light. And for his key light, we used the computer monitor. Now with the lighting setup complete, it's time to shoot. This was a very simple shoot with only 5 shots. The wide establishing shot, the close-up ear shot to emphasize the demon whispers, the close-up chip shot to show the branding and emphasize the importance of the chips, our main medium shot where we see our demon Jeff, and our green screen shot where we will composite the creepy house. Step 2. Creating UE5 assets. By creating, I mean arranging pre-made 3D assets to enhance the story or scene. With that said, there are 2 things we had to create: the demon hovering behind my brother and the outside house environment. So for our demon shot, I chose to use another Paragon asset, the subscribe button, Severov. And I thought this was going to be simple, you know, the usual import the model, and since I didn't have to create an environment, all I had to do was match the lighting. Piece of cake. With an animation added, a few lights added, and tweaks to their position and intensity of the lights, I was ready to export and test it out. Yeah, or so I thought. For some reason, the animation I applied to the mesh wasn't playing. Let me explain. It was playing in the level sequencer fine, but when I would export it, exported the play level. And I thought, oh, simple. I probably just messed up applying the animation. Export, same issue. So I go into the mesh and try applying the animation there, right? Export, same issue. I go into the details tab and I just start checking and unchecking options that make sense. I unchecked the enable gravity and now the character isn't falling anymore. So I thought, okay, well, one problem solved. Now, how do I apply the animation to this? Google after Google, same issue. And now I'm lost, out of idea. Like, why is this stupid animation being applied to the level sequence and I can see it playing, but when I export it, the character is having a seizure? Let's double check the animation. Wait, this is the mesh and this is the animation blueprint. Oh, I have to apply the animation to the animation blueprint. Boom, problem solved. And now for the money shot. I knew I wanted this shot to end the short by establishing the chips and also as an establishing a wide shot. So I needed two things. One, an outside house environment, and two, a few Halloween inspired props. For the house, I decided to use old brick house, and luckily one of the free assets for this month was Halloween pumpkins / 150 variations. I imported all the assets and started working to lock in the sky and weather effects using Ultra Dynamic Sky. This was actually my first time using Ultra Dynamic Sky, recommended by Punisher, and let me tell you, it was a breeze to use. With all that done, I then worked on the lights, using a point light in the top right room to imply that that's where our short took place, and 3 spotlights for the house, one behind the house acting as a rim light, one in front of the house acting as a fill, and the last shining through the back left window for some depth. With the lighting done and a few tweaks to our environment, I then took a photo of the chips, cut it out from the background, and imported it into UE5. The idea was to apply the photo as a material onto a plane, and since the camera movement is only a pullback, I was positive this idea was going to work. So a few tutorials later, I made a material using our chip photo with a transparent background, applied it to the plane, and yeah, it was looking rough. There was a wash of orange light from the light above, and for some reason, the background wasn't completely transparent. As a last-ditch effort, I decided to export a mask and use that as an opacity mask in UE5. This was it. If this didn't work, I had no idea how I was going to composite the chips in. I linked up the blueprints and same thing. I was devastated. Do I just have terrible luck? This is exactly how the other guy did it, so why isn't it working for me? Like, how am I going to compose After Effects? And it all clicked. I've been training my whole life for this moment. Why couldn't I see it earlier? This is the exact same workflow I used for my previous project. So I quickly exported the UE5 scene as a PNG sequence and imported it into After Effects. Step 3. Composite UE5 assets with live action footage. This process was the most tedious, so let me know if you want a video that goes into detail, but here's the gist. Using After Effects' roto brush, I had to roto, basically cut out the chair my brother was sitting in so that it looked like Jeff was actually behind him. This saved me a ton of time. And after the roto, I created a particle system, and then using the fractal noise effect, I created an animated aura effect to give off evil energy vibes. This was enhanced by using the displacement map effect, using the aura layer as the source to create a kind of heat mirage. I then animated Jeff into frame, duplicating him 2 times, then offsetting those layers by 1 keyframe for the evil energy trails. And then a few more effects to make Jeff glow as he is entering the frame. All these ideas implying that Jeff is appearing from some other dimension. And finally, the export. I queued up the After Effects project into Media Encoder, let it rip, and stepped away feeling proud. The composite is looking, decent, and with all that work, I deserve a good nap. 2 hours later, export isn't done. Whatever, that's weird, but I'll give it more time. 2 hours later, same spot. It hasn't moved. So I canceled it, started again, another 4 hours, stuck in the same spot. It's 12 AM and I want this export done tonight so I can put it all together and continue with music and sound design. So Media Encoder. I created a Premiere file, imported the After Effects composition, and export. Cool, it'll be fine. 1 hour later, 98%. Awesome. I'll head to bed and let it finish. I awoke rejuvenated, excited to continue the project, dedicated to the chips that have flavored my taste buds with absolute heaven. I shook the mouse to awaken the computer monitor. 98%. What the Fine, even though After Effects files are huge because there's no MP4 option, I'll deal with it. Export from After Effects, stuck, and now I am spent. What started out as an amazing morning turned into a gruesome, annoying day. Many attempts at exporting and Googling later, I exported the composition as a PNG sequence, and at this point, I'm praying, like, please just work. Yes! I lined up the sequence in my main timeline and everything turned out fine. Yes! Now onto the house. With the house PNG sequence imported into After Effects, I used a camera track effect to create a digital camera that replicates the movement in the shot so that the chip photo will stay in place as the camera moves. Camera track didn't work as the points didn't make a good ground plane, but I came prepared this time with the backup plan. Time to take it back old school manual keyframes. I made the chip photo a 3D layer and manually keyframed the position and got it looking pretty good. I then duplicated the house layer and put them both above the chip layer, masked out the rocks, and animated those masks to sell the illusion that the chips were behind the rocks. Then duplicated the chip layer 3 times, one for the contact shadow on the ground, one for the contact shadow on the chips, and the last for the lightning highlight at the end. At this point, the rain was only behind the chips because the rain is on the house layer, which is below the chip layer. So I added a rain in front of the chip layer and water droplets on the chips to blend it all in. And finally, an adjustment layer with a noise effect and a color grade to unify all the layers. And if you got this far, please don't forget to like the video. And finally, the laser. So looking back, there are a few things that I would have done differently. I would have made the room and chair in UE5 to get more accurate lighting on Jeff. I also would have placed markers on the ground where I wanted the chips and used that to get a more accurate camera track. I've also learned that plan C will probably become plan A. So having multiple backup plans is crucial to not getting discouraged. By the way, this video is just scratching the surface about how I achieved all this, and there are tons more details. If you would like a deeper dive into how I specifically problem solved my way to doing something, please let me know down in the comments, and please don't forget to subscribe and like the video. I'll see you next time.